Hey, what's happening, y'all? Here is the full tournament recap. It's kind of a two-tournament deal. Spent the entire weekend here in Red Willow Reservoir up by McCook, Nebraska. And this is for the Colorado Kayak Bassmasters tournament series. We went up there. You know, we visited this place last year, I want to say late summer, and man, it was super scorching hot out there, and big numbers got put up, over 90 inches to win the thing. So there was a lot of anticipation. The water levels were low when we went there last year, so there was a lot of anticipation building up to this one coming in. That's why the schedule put two events back to back, literally right on the schedule for us, just because we were coming here at an earlier time, anticipating that the water levels would be up, and just putting a lot more of that shoreline structure that we've seen into play. And so leading up, though, about a week, 2 weeks ahead of schedule, ahead of when we were going to get there, we started looking at the water levels, and for whatever reason, agricultural draining or whatever, the water levels weren't up. They were actually about the same as what they were in August of last year. So we were thinking, well, dang it, this is going to be, we're going to have to, play this game again of that low water. The only difference would be is that the water level hadn't been getting drained down, so the fish would be a little more acclimated to the existing water levels. Then Mother Nature says, hold my beer, and boom, dude, about a week beforehand coming in, just torrential, monsoon type weather hits southwestern Nebraska. Literally the week, leading up, we weren't even sure we were going to be able to get in here because there were several roads and bridges that had been flooded out, dude. And so, for real, we weren't even sure we were going to be able to actually get in here safely and get out. Obviously, as you see us, we were able to make it. Weather kind of straightened up a little bit, but any rate, what that did is that put a rising water condition, anywhere between probably 2 and 4 foot is what we're thinking. What happened? The main rivers that did blow up weren't directly connected to Red Willow, so it didn't affect Red Willow Reservoir near as bad as it did some of the other areas, around the res. So, at any rate, that was kind of the week leading up to this whole thing. So we get here, and we got a little bit of a late start on Thursday for our practice, but we get here, lots of wind. That was really the name, but every time we've been here, it's been windy, so I think that's just normal for out there. And we got there on the water. We went snooping around. We saw quite a bit of stuff. Had a pretty good practice in regards to finding lots of things and marking a lot of different things. So if you look at Red Willow, it kind of looks like a big boomerang in a way. It's got one big arm that runs north-south and another that's in east-west. Last year, there's only 3 ramps on the entire lake. There's the far north one, which is Spring Creek ramp. Just a little bit south, like one cove down, there's another one that's up there to the north, but it's the one would be the middle one, is called Willow View Campground ramp. And then way down at the bottom, the south end is the south ramp. And that's it. That's the only places to really, truly, honestly launch around the lake. So last year we went to the south and ran as far west as we could up that east-west arm there, and played around in the trees up in there, and really did not produce a whole lot of anything, man. It was not a great great result for us. And everybody that went to that north-south arm that went up to the north there, they got healthy and they did well. So, as you would anticipate, that was, you know, my first game plan out the door was, we're not even going to mess with that east-west. We're going to go to the north-south arm over there, and we're going to figure it out from the main entry of that down by the dam all the way on up. So we did that, man. I spent pretty much all of Thursday up there snooping stuff around. Friday, weather, you know, was supposed to be pretty dodgy. Didn't turn out to be so dodgy. It really wasn't that bad all in all. So we got a chance to snoop the south a little bit, drove the ramps, went to Willow Creek, launched from there, and saw a few other things of kind of what we were into and what we wanted to get after. So, at any rate, we felt pretty good about launching from the north. We just weren't 100% sure who all, you know, was going to be launching where. So that, you know, I try not to be right in the middle of the big crowds, you know, when we're, especially on a lake like this where you can launch from pretty much any ramp and get where you want to get if you're willing to make a run. With the CKB, we launch 15 minutes before lines go in, so we can usually run about a solid mile before its official lines in, and you know, on most cases. So we ended up opting to launch from Willow Creek, the one right in the middle. One of the downsides to this ramp, along with the south ramp, is they have the chains up right at the top of the ramp to keep boats out. Not down, they don't chain off down at the bottom, they chain off the top. So what that meant is that we had to prep our gear and run our, you know, use our cart to get our kayaks down. Well, that Willow Creek ramp, y'all, is no joke. That thing is steep. And it's pretty good size, you know, pretty good length to it to get to and fro. Say, just like the south ramp. So launching really wasn't too bad. We were able to get our stuff, you know, under the cable. Actually, I pulled up to the cable and pulled the kayak out and over it, put it down there, got it on a cart, rigged it out, got it down, and we went fishing. Well, I gotta tell you, we found some fish, but they were all the wrong flavor. Okay, y'all, I mean, it was catfish, walleye, and crappie. That was pretty much, you know, what we were finding and tracking down out there. Not the kind of day we wanted, man. And I just never felt great. Again, it was another tournament where I just didn't feel like I was in a zone and feeling like I was, you know, where I wanted to be, how I wanted to be fishing. And so, end of the day, we're, you know, at the back of the pack. Didn't boat a single keeper fish all day long. And yeah, man, I went back to the hotel that night, and some folks were going out a second night. They were gonna, you know, all gonna meet down at a local restaurant there in town, and I just wasn't feeling it. So went to Subway, got my food, went back to the hotel, got in the truck, started going through my pickup, going through me and getting my stuff all put together, and really trying to get my brain just right. And one of the pieces there, my roommate, my travel buddy on this one, couldn't stay for day 2, so he was heading out. And so saw him right before he went to Subway as well. Saw him there on his way out of town, and I'm like, hey man, you don't mind sharing, can you tell me what were they in? Because there's a lot at play here, and I was very curious, because he actually did really well. My roommate did. He did an awesome deal. Scott Brands is who it is, and he's a hook anywhere he goes. But I was just kind of curious as to what I missed that he and a few others found. All in all, I will say this: it was kind of a struggle bus for a lot of folks. The thing was not fishing. The lake was not fishing really great. I was not alone in getting skunked. There was a lot of good anglers out in that water that did not do well at all. So took a little bit of solace in that, but irrelevant. I don't like comparing myself to other anglers out there. This isn't a me versus them, in tournaments. This is me versus me trying to fish, and discover and figure things out. So at any rate, I asked Scott, it's like, if you wouldn't mind sharing. And he said, no, not a problem. He goes, grass. And I'm like, okay, you were finding them in grass. He's like, yep. So I went back, got my food, went back to the hotel, and said, okay, I marked quite a bit of grass during practice, but I never really found anything coming out of it. And so without getting initial feedback properly, I kind of bailed on the concept of running grass patterns around there. Because you could find grass, in 8, 9, 10 foot of water or 6 inches of water. It was there. Some of it dirty and dead, some of it clean. There were several islands that had been submerged with the rising water, that made them only like a 12 to 18 inch, water over top of these islands, that had a lot of plants and grass on them. So, like I said, after getting that tip from Scott, it basically put me in the head of going, okay, where did I mark the most grass on my graph? So I looked at it there, and while I was at the hotel, I was looking at my graph on the Kayak, and I found my location. So I knew this time we're launching from the very north, from Spring Creek, and we're heading north. Our first stop would be one of those islands. We were going to go hit that, work that first thing in the morning, thinking there might be a good, morning bite going on there, and then we were going to go work from there. So that's what we did. After skunk training it on day 1, with day 2 we started off, went right out to the island. Basically, took almost all of our time to get there, 15 minutes to get up there. And I decided there was a little bit of a crotch in the contour between the island and the shoreline. So I started up in there and started working the deep side of the offshore side of that little dip, that ditch that ran through there. Grabbed a buzz bait, slung it around out there in about 5th or 6th cast. Doink, hooked into a 15.5, and I'm thinking, okay, well, this could be, this could pan out all right. Pinned him real well, so I fished around 15, 20 more minutes with that buzzbait. Nothing. Wasn't getting anything. So I broke from that, went up a little bit up that same shoreline, further north and around a little bend, and found plenty of grass that I had marked, so I started fishing that. Tried a little more top water, then moved over to just a Ned rig with a big TOD on it, and started fishing and bouncing around with that, looking for some feedback. Caught a couple walleye with that, and thought, well, this is not working out. We don't want this. So I turned around and I came back, went back to that island, and as I did, ran into another guy I know up there. He was kind of coming down towards the island, so hit the island and then worked to the outside, the offshore side of the island, went way out there, and just wasn't seeing anything. So I made the decision at this point, and by now so we went lines in at about 6 a.m. So I made the decision, I think it was about 7:30, when I decided, that's it, we're going to jump to the other side, we're going to start getting on the grass patterns that I have over there. So I went over to the other side, and it wasn't long, doink, 15.75. And that was just working a shoreline coming up. A little bit further, went up, doink, 15.75. So, actually, you know what? No, it was a 15.75 first thing in the morning. Then I got a 15.5, and then got another 15.75 on this. The reason I remember that is because you're not allowed to catch the same fish twice in a given tournament. And so I remember thinking to myself, well, there's no problem here. I know it's not the same fish because the 15.75 first one I caught was on the other side of the lake, or on, yeah, over on the west side of this north-south arm, and this is on the east side, so I wasn't too worried about it. So then by now I got 3 fish, and I'm thinking, you know what, this isn't a bad deal. Let's keep working. So I spin around the corner, start heading or around this point, and start heading up the other side of this point. Hit a couple non-keepers on my way up there, a couple 10, 11 inchers, and then another walleye or 2, and I'm throwing a Ned rig now. That's basically, I'm just throwing it out and dragging it back, throwing it out and dragging it back, and just literally purposely going through the weeds with it, and just snapping it, you know, through there. And another guy had come in and basically jumped in on the shoreline further down from me, basically right where I was going, but just further down. And he hooks into a beast, and right out of this, because it's a prime grass patch out there, he hooks into a beast, doesn't get him in. It's not too long after that, boom, boat's a 20, and by now I'm already passing right by with him through this big weed patch. And man, we were pitching and flipping at that point. You know, I was throwing my jig in there, I was throwing a Texas rig in there, just wasn't seeing anything. So I went further past it and throwing a Texas rig. Like I said, I was throwing my all-terrain jigs in the heavier stuff that I wanted to punch through, and then out in the more open, just because of the reel setup I had, I was just throwing a Texas rig, a rage tail on it, and threw that out there and watched the line take off, set into it, about 17 3/4, 17.75. So now we're sitting on 4 fish, right? And feeling pretty good about this. And I knew all I need is a big kicker, man. Let me go get that one big kicker, because there's so many 19s and 20s and 21s sitting in that water. I knew that if I just kept my head down, man, I was bound to be able to, you know, numbers alone would tell me I was bound to hit into one. So kept fishing up that side, then realized I'd gone a little bit too far. It wasn't looking as good the further north I went. So backtracked a little bit, then decided to jump all the way over to the other side again, and go find some grass over there that I had marked. So I did that, went over there, fished, nothing. Decided to pull out of that little bay on the other side and just start working my way down. My ultimate goal was to just work down that other shoreline and then jump across and rinse and repeat again. Just basically kind of rotate through the area there from each side of that big arm. And on my way around, there was another angler in a kayak coming up the other direction. He was throwing a completely different presentation of bait than I was, so I wasn't too worried about, you know, if we're going to fish behind each other on that when we meet. And as I get over, as I'm getting near the point, I hook into another one, and he's just a little 12 and a half, 12 and a quarter, whatever it ended up, I can't remember. Just a little guy, but he measures. That's our limit, man. What I didn't realize is that we were the first to post a limit on Tourney X there for this tournament, which was cool. That was good to see. But we were sitting in first place for quite a while. Well, the other angler out there on that other side, he was throwing a buzz bait, and I was pitching and flipping. And lo and behold, as we pass each other, we communicate real quick, find out which way, you know, each is going, and we just fish right around each other and just keep on going down the deal the way it should be. And I jumped to the other side. When I double check standings again real quick. Well, by now, he had submitted his stuff in that he had, so put him up in first place. He had like 81 inches, and I was sitting on about 77 1/4 is where we were at. Kind of new, bear with me folks while I'm trying to find where I'm supposed to turn here. There we go. So I realized he was over there, and now we're in first and second place respectively. So my plan of just rotating, you know, back and forth, just doing laps like that, kind of altered him a little bit, because I didn't want to jump over on his side where he was clearly working up and down the shoreline there. I didn't want there to be, you know, any goofiness with me going in there with he and I, you know, fishing first and second. I wanted to give him his space and just, you know, work on my own stuff over here and see what, you know, what we could do with it. So I just stayed over there and I started working those weed edges there. And where I watched those big fish, 2 of them come off dude's hook and one big one that he landed, I really doubled down on that. Started looking for bigs, throwing more jig than anything. Then I busted back to the Ned rig looking, caught a couple more walleye. They had just stocked the place with a bunch of stalker walleye. So those fish were just on the hunt. And every time I got that Ned rig out, man, it was getting the wallies for sure, and bringing them in. But yeah, man, so the day finished out. We fished it right down to the last second, and worked and grinded. Wasn't sure where we were at in the big scheme of things, but by the time it all played out, 2 of the usual suspects were at the top. That was Jason DeWong and Trev Stuckey. Those guys are always, I mean, they duke it out, man. They battle out first and second a lot of times. And that's really what boiled down with this one. Trev had himself a couple a good bag and some good fish towards the end there, and locked himself up first place. Jason had second, and we came in third here for ourselves. So, pardon me folks, super foggy right now, and we're trying to find our way through this little town, getting back to the major highway. Not sure why Google Maps decided to take us this way, but whatever. So anyway, it was still a hell of a rebound for us to go out and just hero to zero, you know, or zero to hero in this case. Very, very pleased, you know, and hats off, super thanks to Scott Brands, just giving me, you know, willing to share, you know, how he caught them. And, you know, I don't ever want information in such a way that, you know, would, you know, take the work out of it. And so that's what I appreciated about Scott's, you know, statement of grass, that at least gave me some information that I was really questioning in the big scheme of things. And I don't know why I'd gotten to that, but clearly what we've identified is that somewhere in my practice regime, I'm not giving enough time in the kayak game here. I'm not giving enough time to certain areas. And so this not only did it yield a solid result for us, you know, a little bit of money, got ourselves a cool plaque here, we got this bad boy, woo, which awesome, always good to add some hardware to the big scheme of things. More importantly though, what this is helping me with is dial back in my practice on what I'm doing there, because clearly I missed something in practice, or I would have, you know, gotten on that. But something's in there that's messed up and it's missing. So now I've got also something that I can work on moving forward to try to lock this up here, so we can constantly go out there and at least compete, put up, decent, numbers of some kind. At the very least, get our limit in the boat. That is still remains as a lofty goal. That every event I go to, I want to make sure I'm putting a limit up. That's of some kind, even if it's just a little bag of rats. At least put a limit up. That's it's important to me that we can find the fish in there. We can build on that. Then quality, that's something completely different. We'll work on. But at any rate, man, it was a great way to end off the weekend. Red Willow showed out pretty well. I'm going to say 80s, mid 80s is what it took both days to bring it together. Maybe even a high 70. High 70s won it on day one, or maybe low 80s. I'd have to go back and double check, but wasn't the normal Red Willow numbers that a lot of people are used to seeing. But having said that, there were some bass 21 and above that were caught, and lots of 20s and 19s. So these are good sized fish and a lot of fun to catch and to always put up on the board. So Red Willow was awesome. James and his wife, they did a phenomenal job as usual running the show, bringing everybody together, making this whole thing, our founder of the feast, putting it all together. All the anglers fishing against, met some new folks there, and got to work with a bunch of guys that I've fished with in the past. So that was super cool as well. And we've got some groundwork laid for a Father's Day weekend excursion with the True Patriot Outfitters that we're going to be taking an Air Force vet and his 3 boys over to Red Willow. And we made a local connection with a guy that is one hell of a hook and fishes some of the national stuff out there quite well. Is Dustin Muse. So we're going to connect with him and hopefully be able to put something together on with him on Father's Day weekend there. So we'll see how all that pans out. But hey, man, appreciate you following along with us. Hit the subscribe button here for us. That's a massive help. And as always, we'll keep these recaps coming. We're off for a little bit. We don't have another event for quite some time. June 24th, save the date, Saturday down at Stanley Lake, Westminster. Come meet and greet the True Patriot Outfitters. Come meet the Colorado Kayak Fishing Club and Peak Rowing. We'll all be on hand right there and doing a little meet and greet to introduce folks to all of our programs. And of course, you get a chance to enjoy Stanley Lake out there June 24th, Saturday from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Appreciate you guys, all the love and support. Tight lines, y'all. Be safe.